Hello, Irish fans, and welcome to another edition of Dome and Domer. My name is Mike Bramer. Joining me, as always, Ed Jordanik, also joining us from IndyNation.com, Mike Coffee.
Actually,
Ed, I was gonna,
from now on, I want you to introduce me as the face made for radio.
yeah,
That's who I want to be for now on.
I was gonna start with you, Ed, but I got to be honest with you. I kind of think like maybe we should just be honest with people, and instead of having them listen to us for 20 minutes, they can listen to us for 2 minutes because Coffee's going to predict the game almost right on. So might as well just ask him what's the score going to be Saturday, Mike?
No, I want to
So
keep people around here. I want people to
yeah,
click
Ed,
off after like about
he
90
predicted
seconds.
he
There's no
predicted
point in that.
44-10 against Navy, so he's off 2 points.
Yeah.
Gave too much credit to the offense of the opposing team. But then he turned around and predicted 56-10 against Tennessee State.
Nice
So
job.
again, overcompensating on the defense. We might as well just ask him, what are we going to put up? How many points? But in any event, I look, I think I'm a firm believer that you after the third game, you pretty much know what team you got. And although indications are looking pretty good after 2 games,
That wasn't the case last year, though.
no, that's true. Yeah, I would
Very
agree.
true.
Very true. But I will start with you, Ed. Just, overall, what are you looking for this Saturday? Do you think it's going to be a much tighter game? Do you think maybe we'll face some adversity? Maybe we're down at halftime. And what are you kind of thinking?
Yeah, no, we're playing a team with just much better athletes than the first 2 weeks. Tennessee State had a few, but overall, just the athletic ability across the board, it's just another tier. So I think it may take us a while to get sort of into the game. But to me, I think the most impressive thing offensively that I've seen the first 2 weeks is sort of how organized and relatively disciplined we look for an early season football team anywhere, but especially Notre Dame. We're kind of used to,
100%
we're kind of used to some motions. We're kind of used to some timeout mangling. We're kind of used to some, delay of game situations. But they played
Instead,
really.
they got that down at Baton Rouge now. So
Yeah, exactly. But they've played really cleanly, and besides the Estime fumble and and Hartman sort of kind of fumbling it out of bounds a little bit on Saturday, I think they've taken good care of the ball. And that is critical, especially on the road. Momentum is so important. So I think if you kind of hold serve or trade punches, for the first half or a quarter and a half, and then start to sort of get your legs about you, get used to the speed of the game. Don't give up any big chunk plays. Don't let sort of Armstrong break away and get out of the pocket and cause some real damage. I think we're a better football team. 1-22, and the second half will belong to Notre Dame, and should win by 2-3 touchdowns.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. I do think we'll face a little bit more adversity. We interestingly in both games, right from the get-go, was a little iffy, to start. But Coffee, one of the things I've been kind of impressed with, only because mostly Marcus Freeman has referenced it after both games, but they've made in-game adjustments. In both occasions, you said they saw stuff in the game that they did not see on film, and yet made adjustments in the game, which I think that's the pinnacle of college football. If you can do that and be successful in the game and making adjustments, that's going to bode well for you. And further to the point that you made about going into the season and having high expectations, Sam Hartman has delivered. He's had 12 possessions, 11 of them have ended in a touchdown. So he's clearly a guy that sees the whole field. He's a guy that can execute. And I think we're facing better athletes this Saturday, but I kind of expect Notre Dame to win this, and maybe 10, 14 points, 17 points is likely.
Well, Ed made an excellent point. The discipline of this team has been great to watch, because discipline is something that is not affected by your opponent, at least not to a great degree. If you're the kind of person if you're the kind of player that has the discipline to not commit fouls, not like do something that kills a drive, not run a route that's wrong, not execute the block and stuff like that. Everyone is so focused and so just energized. And it's not just the starters. I mean, if you watch the second half, it's not like all of a sudden Tennessee State started actually gaining ground on the reserves. And like when you watch Navy, it's not like all of a sudden Navy started getting things done. The second and third teams are playing just as well as the first teams are. And in addition to finding the making the adjustments and stuff, I think it gets back to coaching. Not only Marcus Freeman, but also all of his assistants who I'm hard pressed to look at this team, to look at a unit on this team and say, that's the unit that's really going to kill this season because they're not playing well. I mean, some are playing better than others, obviously, but all of them are really performing at such a high level. Now, granted, against crappy teams, but that's what you're supposed to do against crappy teams. You're supposed to blow them out, and that's what they did.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that the surprising thing is that it's been so early in the season for us to see the kind of execution level. I honestly can't remember seeing this from Brian Kelly's teams this early in the season. I really don't. And granted, it is two opponents that were not probably there. NC State has got some athletes. I mean, it's going to be a little bit different scenario. But Ed, you alluded to some of the things that we think are going to be the strengths that ended up not being, and something else shows up. But the running backs has been kind of surprising to me. Before I thought to myself, what in God's name is Logan Diggs transferring for? But now I think I understand. I mean,
Yeah.
There is some serious talent at running back that, I mean, it does not drop off much when Estime exits the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I really liked seeing, I mean, Hartman made a beautiful throw. I loved seeing Tyree get into the game plan and make that touchdown catch. Also, there's a lot of guys that would have not gotten into the end zone on that play. He slithered in there, really, really, really nicely. So, I mean, I think the defensive line has held up pretty well. Again, this is a much better measuring stick this Saturday, like you said.
Yeah,
Mike,
for sure.
To know what we really have. But what I do sense is that all great teams are never satisfied. They're seeking that elusive perfect game. And I think when you have that sort of growth mindset, the sky's the limit. Like, for instance, you can tell that that there is ongoing competition for those guard spots. For it sounds like they're changing the returners on kickoffs. They aren't satisfied with.
Yep.
That's probably been the. If you were to rank the three, special teams is probably third in terms of how well it's performed so far. So they're not. Listen, I mean, it's going to be a clear-cut meritocracy with our receivers. Colsey or Merriweather sort of don't make plays or miss a block or step up. They're not gonna play until they show in practice and in games that they're worthy of. Same obviously goes for the freshmen. And so I just kind of like those sort of little hints or those little signs of a hungry team that is a smart, disciplined team. Like you said, very few penalties so far, very few silly penalties. That call on who got tossed Saturday, it was abysmal. And then they didn't even look at the board hit.
Yeah, and then on the kickoff, they don't even look at that. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
That was garbage.
Yeah,
how do you line those two plays up and say one's targeting and the other one isn't?
Well,
I mean, it's kind of
if you've watched some college football the first 2 weekends, I mean, targeting remains the utter, ridiculous thing that it's been since the rule was introduced. I mean, the referees are confounded, the replay officials are confounded, the coaches don't know what the hell is going on.
You might as well just let people text and decide based on that. Like, what does College Football Nation think of this as targeting or not?
Yeah, no, it's really
it's crazy
to be a joke. Yeah. So, but we're really nitpicking here, right? I mean, we're.
No, I know. I'm with you 100%. Coffee. I think that and Ed kind of touched on it. boy, I'd really like to see Merriweather get involved. I just think he's such an extreme talent. We got to give him a chance. And maybe it is a confidence thing. Maybe the reason he's kind of blindsided a little bit with his responsibilities is because he hasn't tasted that success yet, which gives you that confidence. But man, to have him as a weapon and get him going, it's going to add a whole heck of a lot to that receiving core. And I think that's about the only thing up to this point that I've been a little kind of bummed about is not seeing him involved a little bit more because I think he's that kind of guy. He's a game changer if he gets his act together. But
Mhm.
I don't know. You just never know.
No, I agree, and I think I'm all for giving him some chances. I really hope that and I shouldn't say I hope, I'm sure that the coaching staff is trying everything to get him untracked and really into just like you said, the confidence that he's missing because having one more weapon out there on the perimeter is just you can't have too many weapons on offense, especially when you have a quarterback like Sam Hartman. So getting him involved and just make one more issue that our opponents are going to have to worry about. I think I really, really would love to see him get untracked on Saturday.
Yeah,
And
at least 3 or 4 catches. Ed,
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's really interesting. I've watched a couple episodes of Hard Knocks now, and what's going on with the Jets is somewhat analogous to what's going on with Notre Dame. Hartman is and Aaron Rodgers, are veterans. They're the oldest guys on the team, and they're developing relationships with young receivers. And when it comes to these quarterbacks and receivers, it's all about trust.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
Rodgers has Randall Cobb, who he's kind of carted around all over, with him, and Jaden Thomas is kind of Sam Hartman's current Randall Cobb. You can tell he feels most comfortable with him, that he trusts him probably most, out of the receivers, and he'll develop that as I'm not quite sure. Maybe Greathouse, maybe Merriweather, maybe Flores is Sam Hartman's Garrett Wilson. But there's a little bit of a similarity there in terms of a veteran quarterback figuring out who he can trust in the big spot, and that's where you really have to see somebody like Merriweather shine, because the fact of the matter is that Sam Hartman's about winning football games. He obviously does not care who he throws the ball to, as long as it moves it down the field. But he's not going to throw it to somebody that he can't trust.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
if Merriweather, starts, making drops, or any of the receivers, I think that you will see. Look at the only thing coming out of the Navy game was that there wasn't a catch by a tight end. Well, that's sure changed on Saturday, right?
Yeah, I was going to give credit to Priester for that because Priester brought that point up, and lo and behold, I mean, did they have like 6 catches in the Tennessee State game? I mean, there was definitely 4, but
oh
I
yeah,
thought
Well,
Mhm.
Well, I thought was so interesting is, you talk about self-scouting and tendencies and stuff. They played that last 38 seconds of the first half perfectly, because that's when
perfectly.
they
Yeah.
rolled out the tight
Yep.
end.
Yep.
They
Yep.
own the middle of the field.
Yep.
The clock still stops after first downs in the last 2 minutes. And then the touchdown pass was to the tight end.
Yep.
So, I think Evans caught 2 or 3 on that drive. So that's the kind of offense that drives defensive coordinators nuts, because there's just, there's some unpredictability to it. There aren't, clear tendencies. And the fact of the matter is that if Notre Dame's going to go where we want it to go this year, they had to improve significantly in 2 areas: red zone offense and red zone defense. Red zone defense was abysmal last year. They haven't allowed a touchdown yet this year, which is really encouraging. Even against a couple of substandard teams, and red zone offense has been splendid. So, but those are two things that I think are really going to, because in those big games, Ohio State, Duke, USC, Clemson, when you get those opportunities, you have to put points on the board. You cannot miss field goals. You cannot go backwards. You cannot do what Clemson did Monday night against Duke, because then you will lose.
Yeah.
They had the ball inside the 10 or 5 or whatever, gave it away, had 2 field goals blocked, ball game.
Yep.
And that's the margin of error is not nearly that big in those kind of games. So, but encouraging.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, with Hartman being 24 years old, I mean, I know everybody's talking about that and that comes up all the time, but the reality of the matter is that is a huge advantage for Notre Dame this season that they've not had in the past. And this is something that kind of gives, you know, there's always that game where you just don't seem to get it going and you don't connect offensively. And I think Hartman's the kind of guy that can eliminate a loss in that situation because he's seasoned enough to know, take what they give you. Don't try and press anything.
Yeah.
Just go with whatever they give you. And that's going to be the difference in a game where we're not firing on all cylinders. And whether that's against a Duke or a Pitt, it's going to happen, or an NC State. I mean, those are 3 trap games that you just, you don't want us to looking ahead. I mean, I know we got Central Michigan after these guys, but Ohio State's looming, so it's just natural to be kind of looking ahead to that. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I do think there'll be a little bit of adversity Saturday, but I do think that eventually we'll plow through it, and because of the running talent that we've got in the second half, we'll be able to kind of wear it down a little bit and sneak out. But Coffee, I'll turn it to
Can I
you.
ask you guys a question first? Because I kind of took a well-deserved nap for most of the second half. Tell me about what you guys saw. You guys have watched a lot of quarterback play over the years. What did Angeli look like? Did he pass the eye test? Did he look comfortable? Did he make good decisions? Did he look like a quarterback that could play at the Power 5 level?
I thought so.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought he made a couple good reads. I mean, look, I mean, it was his first snap at it, so I don't necessarily, but I certainly didn't see a huge drop off. I really didn't.
No.
I did not see that, and I think that's the big huge eye test.
How was his footwork? Did he move around?
I thought he was actually pretty good.
I mean, the one touchdown to I forget who he threw to, but flushed out of the pocket under duress, gets the ball out there, and for 7 points. That's
yeah. I did think that
I thought both touchdown passes he threw were sort of short passes and runs, but I'm not.
Oh
sure.
yeah, that's what it was. But
okay.
Yeah, if you found the outlet, and the outlet guy just went for forever and ever. So
okay.
There were a couple of dropbacks where it looked like he was purveying the field and was shuffling his feet and then let the ball fly. So I think the good news is it certainly wasn't a huge drop off where you're like, oh my God, if Hartman goes down, we're in deep trouble. I did not feel that way. Now it's late in the game, so it's really hard to assess that, but he certainly didn't. I thought he looked pretty good.
I mean, if Hartman goes down, I mean, there's obviously some measure of concern, but I think Angeli going in there, it's, I don't know, it's not a total loss. I mean, it's definitely going to be a step down, but it's not just like a complete nosedive.
Well, I think the other thing is good. That is, that sometimes we sort of overlook, and I do blame this on Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees to a lesser extent, and the various offensive coaches over the years. But I think that this time, right now, the top 3 quarterbacks are stylistically very similar. You don't have have this crazy difference between a Zaire and a Kaiser. You don't have this crazy difference between a Book and a whatever. I mean, to me, there don't have to be any significant sort of system changes or switches to continue to run the offense that you want to run. They both seem to have sort of similar athletic abilities. They both seem to be comfortable being pocket passers, but they can use their feet if necessary. Those kinds of things. So I think that probably makes it easier to coach the position, and it makes it easier to prepare for a Hartman injury or for an issue. If when you've got these three guys, and it sounds like Carr, it sounds like they're recruiting. They know what they want in terms of their skill set, and they're not going to deviate too far into a statue that just sits back there and throws, or a guy that really struggles with the throw sometimes, but has good wheels. You know what I mean? Like they kind of
Yep.
seem to have found that balance, which is the quarterback of today. I mean, you've got to have those guys that can make you a little worried about their legs, while at the same time being an accurate passer with all the throws in their quiver. So I think that's kind of encouraging as well.
Yeah, I think it is. You won't see much change in the play calling if Angeli does have to come in, because I like you say, I don't think it's a big difference. It's not a Tyler Buckner going to a uh, to a small, tiny, athletic quarterback. I mean, it's the same exact stature, it's the same exact play calling, and I do think that if we get into that situation, God help us, I hope we don't, but because I really think the ceiling's very high if Hartman stays healthy. I mean, it's looking pretty good at the moment. Coffee, let's go to you first, because it's probably, we may not even do predictions with me and Ed. Might as well we'll just go with whatever you say.
Nice. It's kind of difficult because I don't necessarily think NC State are world beaters. I think they're well coached. Their quarterback, and he's outstanding. But I think over the last couple of years, their talent has kind of crept down a little bit. So I think we have a talent advantage, and it remains to be seen how much of the experience they've picked up over the last 2 weeks playing against tomato cans is going to stay when all of a sudden the guy lining up across from them is a lot closer to their ability than they've had so far this year. I'm saying 31-14.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's still pretty decent. I kind of thought the same thing. I mean, I do think that there's going to be a little bit adversity in that first half, just because I think there's going to be a reality check there, a little bit higher caliber of talent, a little bit of decent coaching. I think NC State's going to throw some stuff at us. I think there's going to be some of that, and when you have a little bit better athletes, it's going to translate into stuff. But I do see us adjusting well, and I think middle of the third quarter, we start to take control of the game and kind of pound them. So I think it's going to be more like a 38-17 final with, the Irish pulling away in the fourth quarter there. Ed, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of like that 38-17 score. That sounds about right to me. At least they're not going to be, playing in a hurricane or a monsoon this trip to the Carolinas.
Yeah.
So the weather should be sort of a non-factor. Notre Dame played well against North Carolina last year. That was a game that they really played well. They've played well against these ACC opponents. We keep waiting for them to stub their toe to get tripped up. But I don't think it's going to be this weekend. I think that I think these coaches are going to strike the right balance between encouragement and setting a higher bar each week. And this is, you gotta, like, Lou Holtz, I always used to love how he would sort of create a 1-game season every week, and sort of figure out a way to make this the most important game on the face of the earth. And that's kind of what you have to do, right? You have to sort of deconstruct, start all over again, and get them to peak on Saturday. And we'll see, but I think this is a coaching staff that feels pretty comfortable doing that. And, you go on the road for the first time against a quality opponent. They will be in a they'll be in a hostile environment. But I like every game on the road, take care of the football, don't make dumb mistakes, get the ball in your playmakers' hands inside the red zone. And, and everything should work out just fine. So I'll say, 37-18.
Okay. Well, as long as we get away with a W, I'm happy with that. So I'll take that all day long. But I do think it's going to be interesting, especially right in the first quarter. There might be some little adversity there. If we get down 10 points, so be it. As long as we stick to our game, which again, in the first two games, in terms of the discipline, it's been outstanding. So I don't see that dropping off all of a sudden out of nowhere. And I think that's the most encouraging thing, because the guys will stay to their form, they'll stay true to their responsibilities. And and that being the case, I just can't see this ending up in a bad way for us.
But like you
But
said, Mike, balls can take funny bounces, and
yeah,
going to be
yep,
some adversity. So,
yep,
to me, it's not the worst thing in the world, if they win 27-26.
no, as
You
long as they
gotta,
win, yeah, that's right.
yeah,
You're
exactly.
going to have this game where things don't click, and so be it. You just got to win. Every single good team goes through this. Go look at the records of Alabama when they won national championships. There was always some game where things just didn't click, but somehow they won.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
2019 against Texas last year.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's going to be fascinating. But yeah, I expect us to win. I think we head to Ohio State undefeated, and everything rides on that game. And I expect that to be a great football game. I really do. I think it's going to be a heck of a football game. And that'll catapult things after that. It's going to be interesting. All right, good deal. We'll leave it there. You've been listening to Dome and Domer, an online conversation about Notre Dame sports from a fan's perspective. For Ed Jordanik and Mike Coffey, I'm Mike Brammer. Thanks for listening.